there's some other problems and toxic weeds that might show up that cattle might not consume otherwise. What are some of those potential problems might have with toxic plants out west?
Mesquite bean is one that we're beginning to see a lot of. Because the mesquite beans are out, there's not a lot of other forage for those animals. And while mesquite beans can be managed in such a fashion with other energy sources and they can utilize them, in our present drought situation, they tend to be consuming or over-consuming those mesquite beans, and we are seeing some mesquite bean intoxication, particularly from the areas where we have mesquite trees available to us.
A lot of times there's some plants that are out there that don't routinely cause us problems. Are y'all starting to see any problems in the diagnostic lab that are kind of uncommon to the cattle situation?
Well, that's a great question. We see one that is generally recognized as a plant that we have in our yards. We see it along a lot of the roadways in Texas, and that's oleander. Oleander is very toxic to almost all animals. But the interesting thing that occurs is people tend to prune their bushes, and then they want to put it over the fence to the cows because it's nice and green for the cows, and they will eat it and die from it. The other thing that happens is in this drought, we're getting lots of dry leaves, and we've had a tremendous wind in Texas lately. And those dry leaves can blow for long distances, and that is one leaf that even as dry is still very toxic.
Okay. And we see some people turn livestock into their yard around their house sometimes just because there's some green grass and they want to be nice to them. That can also lead to some toxicity issues.
Yes, it can, because sometimes our plants around our house can be toxic. However, let me assure you, rose bushes are not toxic to the cows or the horses, but they maybe cause upset to our owners.
We do have a lot of oleanders planted in landscape situations,
yes,
and they can certainly expose themselves to those oleanders.
Yes, they can. So I always recommend adding some protein. Give them some extra concentrate feed and exercise extreme caution by watching them, because we know that in this drought animals are going to go where they're not necessarily always at, whether they're going to explore the fence lines with extra diligence or whether they're going to be reaching through that fence line to get to things in the bar ditch or any other surrounding pasture that may have other toxic weeds in them, or Johnson grass that has not been cared for or tested. So then we need to be extra cautious about where these animals might be going that we have not looked at beforehand.
One of the things we always recommend, and I'll get your take on that, is to make sure the cattle are full before they're turned in a new pasture, where they're not craving gut fills, where they don't overeat so much when they first turn in. Is that a good idea, to make sure they're full?
Ron, that's an excellent idea. Keeping the animals full, especially before you turn them onto a questionable pasture or even one that you know is safe, that's still an idea of caution, is to keep them full and not let hungry animals in there to where they will simply overeat and cause themselves problems even from overeating.